Hi, we're here with Cameron Watt, CEO of Intouch Insight. Stock trades on the OTC at INXSF, and I guess in Canada, INX.V, Cameron?
That's correct.
Yeah. So, the company does a few things in the kind of data capture, data analyst, customer experience segments. And we're going to get into that and how the company has transformed over the years, and kind of talk about the evolution of the company, a lot of changes that have gone on in the company and where we're at today, and how Cameron is competing in this current new environment we're in right now. You just reported your earnings recently. I think that was Q1 earnings. We'll go over that. You did provide some guidance, which was showing for, I think, 50% revenue growth this year, and we'll get into that too. So Cameron, let's talk about you, and maybe you can, like I like to do always, and these things is talk about kind of the beginnings of the company. Had the challenges. I mean, you almost went to bankruptcy. You eventually got involved in the company, did some changes. So why don't you just give us that nice little background of the company?
Sure, I'll give you a little background of the company. I mean, you said you were going to talk about me. I thought it was going to be my favorite subject. Now you say your background of the company. That's okay.
We'll get to that.
Probably nobody wants to know about me except me, so we'll go with the company side. The company was founded in '92. It was known as the kiosk company actually back in the day, and it was known as that because it would send out kiosks back, like Bob Evans and companies out there. A kiosk would go into the foyer of the restaurant, or people would come and they would basically push on a little button to answer questions on the customer satisfaction survey. And it was pushing a button physically on that kiosk sitting in the lobby, and then it would store it in a little box. And then those things would get shipped to restaurant, and the data would get collected. And it was used fairly widely. And the reason, of course, was, for those of you who may not be old enough to remember this fully, there was no internet. So, or there was, but it was pretty much in its infancy, and it sure wasn't used for things like, broad-based surveys. So that was kind of the start of the company. And then fast forward to 2002, the company went public. And at the time, they, I wasn't around at that time, full disclosure, I don't join in this story till 2011. But in 2002, they went public. And for whatever reason, they went and doubled down into the hardware space. And they went, they continued being the kiosk company. Well, at that same time, the internet now was a thing. It was being used for surveys. It was kind of a direction that customers were going to go. And so by 2004, the company was virtually bankrupt. It was very rough shape. Consolidations, pennies for the stock. Literally not. It wasn't a penny stock. It was a penny stock. And a group came in 2004. A number of gentlemen came in at that point, and they basically put some money in, and they resurrected the company. One of which was Michael Gaffney, who is currently our chairman, and he became CEO after that resurrection, until I took over. Eric Buchel is still on our board. Reiner Paddock is still on our board. Some of our board members have been around since they came in to save the company. So a lot of history there, a lot of knowledge about the company. And they took the business at that point in 2005. They bought a mystery shopping company, and that put them into the services space, into the data capture space around the services, and that company's history went back to 1978. So in terms of some of the roots, goes back to 1978 now on the services side in terms of experience. And in 05 to 08, 09, they continued to grow that, and they were also in the event marketing automation space, which was General Motors being a big customer. Bought a couple of those companies even around 08, and then of course we all know about the financial crisis in the United States. So that affected the business a little bit. But by the time 2011 rolled around, I joined as in sales and marketing. Actually, 2011 is where I joined. The company was a very stable company at that point. 100% of the services space. It basically had, we want a person in sales. We had some people running the database and a little bit of a reporting platform. And we had an operational company that ran the services. And it was stable. It was doing about $8 million. It had about 35, 40 employees. And it was, it was back, they'd saved it. The company was fully saved. In 2013, the fall of 2013, so 2014 first operating year, I was elevated to the president CEO. at which point I made the decision that we wanted to get into software. We were obviously in services, but I felt like we needed to look forward, and that SaaS-based software is the road to go. So between 2014 and 2017, early 2018, we really learned how to become a software company. We bootstrapped it from inside. We put in an HR department, put in a product management group, put in an engineering team, put in a marketing team. We basically built an organization that could actually develop and deliver and sell software. And then we launched our LeaCX product in the spring of 2018 after the only raise the company's ever done since its IPO in 2002 was for a small raise of $3.5 million in fall 2017. And that was just to leapfrog our development efforts and just get us into that software space a little bit faster than we were able to do with the bootstrapping. We got that product out the door in 2018. We were doing very, very well with it. In terms of initial traction, we had lots of growth in 2019. We had forecasted another big growth year in 2020. And I don't think I have to tell anybody on the call what happened in the spring of 2020. But we effectively, and we've been bootstrapping that software business ever since. So, today as it sits, we are still very strong at services. It's still our bread and butter. It's still our cash machine. And we continue to bootstrap and build a SaaS business from underneath. So it's sort of the long story long.
Well, so that's great though, and so basically you've gone from now you're almost a one source type of shop for a lot of what you do here, right? And you're not just mystery shopping. I mean, you're doing that, but you're also. Why don't you explain what mystery shopping really is? It's not just about seeing what the customer wants. It's actually monitoring, I guess, how employees are acting, how branding going on in some locations, right? Inventory management. So maybe get into what that really is.
Yeah, we're not a mystery shopping company. We're a data capture company. We capture data. We do it with our SaaS products, but we also, all of our services capture data. That's what we do. And that's why part of our software that we built is an analytics engine that sits in the middle. So anything we do, if it's services or software, that data goes into our analytics engine, reporting engine. If companies have a third party that they're doing other data capture with, they bring that into our reporting platform to have it in one place, and the data analytics and reporting in one place, which we have a number of customers do that. So we are a data capture, analytics, and reporting company at our core, and the services is the one way that we do that. Now, mystery shopping is actually an audit. It just happens to be covert. So we do those. We audit pharmaceutical reps to see if they're storing their samples right for the FDA in terms of the Prescription Drug Marketing Act compliance. We used to audit the SATs back before they went virtual for a while now. So we do all kinds of data capture out there. We even go out for a large company I can't name, and we go make sure that the locations they're advertising with them, that the pins on their map are correct. When people are going out there looking on their computers. So we do a lot of data capture, and on the audit side of it, we do operational audits where we go and we make sure people are, have the right products in place, that they have the right procedures on the wall, that they're cleaning things, that they don't have things aren't expired, temperatures are right. We do that kind of audits. We also do age verification audits, where we go and make sure people aren't selling to underage minors alcohol, tobacco, age-restricted products. So we do a lot of different things. And the mystery shop, as we call it, but it's really a covert audit. And it's really us just going out and making sure that locations are doing the right things. And the way I'll take a minute just to explain it, so help people understand why we do services and software things. A lot of people say, well, why do you, go out and ask, why do you send a mystery shopper? There's only one person, maybe, like for example, at a convenience store chain, we might go to every single location once a month, once a week, and we go in there and we do an audit and we check to see. People are like, well, why bother? That's only like once a week, once a month. How's that telling you anything? Your customers are giving you thousands of feedback on surveys. Just use that, right? It's more data, it's more reliable data. That's what we hear. And that's when I know somebody doesn't understand what we do, because we don't go in and check to see how the person felt about their experience. We don't go in to check to see if they had a good, feeling customer experience. We go in to audit covertly or overtly whether that location is following or adhering to the corporate brand standards for delivery to their customers. And covertly is the only way you can go in and find out if somebody is smiling, if somebody's courteous, if somebody's suggestive selling, if they're giving a parting remark, those kind of things, right? And overtly is the only way you can go in and start checking people's temperatures and all their expiry dates without somebody knowing what you're doing. So we use both, but really it's checking their standards. So when I've been in a room, for example, full of VPs of operations, and I'll say, okay, so your social media data has just come in, all your Facebook and your Twitter and your LinkedIn, everything's come in and said your customers are not happy with the cleanliness of your washer. That's what the customers have said, period, right? You can't argue with it. Oh, by the way, all your customer satisfaction survey data you're collecting says the same thing. Every piece of data you have says your customers aren't happy with washroom cleanliness. So what do? Everyone who's listening right now is thinking, well, go clean the washrooms, right? And then I explain, yeah, but what if I told you might have just made your customer satisfaction worse in your stores, right? And now people kind of go like, that's when I get the furrowed brows and people think maybe I was drinking before work, and then I explain it. The reality is that what if that employee, that manager, those people in that store, what if they were following every one of your standards? What if they were doing everything you told them to do when you told them to do it, and they were trying their very best, and then you just go out there and bring the hammer down because everyone thinks the washrooms are dirty, right? I mean, employees will get frustrated. They will feel unappreciated, okay? And if your employees are not happy, your customers are not going to be happy. That is empirical evidence. We have anything we've ever done. And so what we do is we go and find out what's going on, because now the operations person takes a look and says, okay, customers think the washroom's dirty. Are we delivering on our standards? And if the store is not delivering on their standards, obviously it's a training, it's a performance management issue. But if they are delivering on the operational standards, then you need to change your standards as a company. You need to change your training program as a company. You may have a capital expense issue in your washer, right? But the solution is very different than training and performance management necessarily, or coming and bringing the hammer down, depending on what's going on today. So we use the software and the services to provide a holistic view of that operation in terms of what people want and what the operators are delivering, so that real-time effective action can be taken and the right action taken to improve the customer experience for our customers, which I think is why we have such stickiness with people working.
Yeah, and I think on that stickiness point, I think you were talking about your retention's been in the 90% range all these years, right? I mean, for years.
Yeah, I mean, we were up in the high 90s for customer retention rate. Certainly revenue retention rate, we were up in the high 90s pre-pandemic. And now I'll let you know. I mean, look, we didn't lose any customers during the pandemic. Well, that's not fair. We lost one who was a smaller program, maybe 50 grand a year, and they were using us to go check on the sale of their product through a retailer. That retailer went bankrupt in the pandemic. But other than that one case, we haven't lost a customer. We still have a handful who haven't come back. That's why I say you got the revenue retention thing is how do you want to measure it, right? But we haven't lost customers. We've got a couple industries like the automotive industry. If you've tried to buy a car lately, it's a S show out there. It's probably a factory order. It's going to wait a year. It's getting a car is hard. My customers don't need me telling them it's a bad sales experience right now. They get it, right? They know. Personal fitness, like the Orange Theory Fitness, the Gold Gyms of the world, they got hit so hard by government regulations, so much shutdown that they're struggling, and they're a little later coming back in some cases. Some of them are starting to now, but it's a little bit slower. So there's a couple of industries that are slow to come back, but mostly our customers are back now. And for us, what was really encouraging was the speed at which they started. Because we were concerned, honestly. I mean, I'd be lying to you if I didn't get very concerned when the shutdowns happened. If you think about it, they're spending all this money with us to collect all this data. It's probably being used for monthly presentations to executives and senior level people. It's likely being used in the bonus programs, so locations and incentives and performance management, right? Well, that all stopped. When the pandemic hit, all of our customers closed their doors. We hit a brick wall. It all stopped. Well, at that point, with all of that having stopped, we had this fear that what if it doesn't come back? What if they say, you know what, we're saving all that money. We've already lost our trend data. We've already lost our bonus program inclusion. We've already lost, like the executives aren't expecting it anymore. We think all the things we did with it, we've lost, right? So maybe we don't bring that big expense back. We recover, maybe we do something different. And we are just so thrilled at that not only that everyone came back, but the speed they're coming back, it tells us that it's valuable. And I think that's the thing. The fact that people come back as quick as they have, and in fact, in the middle of the pandemic, some customers had us reactivate programs to start checking to see if stores had sanitizer available, if they had floor markers, if people were wearing masks, right? That concept of needing that data on what's going on in your 1,000 locations when you can't be everywhere, it's valuable to these chains, and that's been proven with how they've come back. So yeah, we're really thrilled with kind of learning that, because there was a fear there.
I think it's maybe even more important now. I mean, I remember you were the first. By the way, I do own the stock. I should disclose that. I should disclose it at the beginning of the podcast, but I definitely own the stock. As of 2019, that's when we first started talking, Cameron. And I would argue that what you do now is even more important, because that's just not just the COVID. Basically, there's certain customer awareness things around COVID, right? But I think it's made the consumer just more alert about a lot of things. It's weird, right? I mean, I think more about some of my customer experience stuff now, and I know, like, even today I was at a Walmart trying to find a better microphone for this podcast and to no avail. And I remember I was in there, and by the way, the help was not good. And I just went to sanitize my hands, and it was empty, right? I didn't say anything. I didn't go and tell anybody, hey, this is Al. I just felt weird about doing that. If I go to LA Fitness or something, it happens sometimes. But I guess this is what you're talking about, right? You would be that my voice. I just don't feel like talking about, right? And I think it is important. And so it's arguably what you do. I mean, maybe some of the stuff you're actually collecting new data on new stuff here, obviously, but I guess what you're worried about too, maybe, and this is a question too, like some of the past behaviors of customers before COVID, they're changing now, right? So, and that's important to bring that, because some of the past data might not be as relevant anymore, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've evolved. One of the things that we did with all of our customers from the moment this thing hit was we let them shut programs off, pause programs, whatever they wanted to do, without any fees or any notices and things, as soon as we could. We've also can change everything. They can change questions, change programs, change. We've worked with them, and we're not charging our normal setup and change fees. We've just been adapting as they've been learning their new way. And you're right. It's no secret that the labor shortage going on right now, right? I mean, a lot of our customers in places like grocery and convenience and restaurants, right, and hotels and retail, and labor's tough. People are struggling. I mean, you talk to some of these QSR chains. I won't name them, but we were talking to a major chain just last week, and their head of operations said that the biggest problem that he was facing was keeping the doors open. It wasn't trying to figure out cleanliness right now. He was trying to figure out how to keep them open, because they were having to close doors at 9 o'clock at night, and he was thinking about shutting breakfast down as a day part for the entire chain in the short term to give some relief. Like, there's struggles. And so if you think about that environment for a second, man, I agree with you, Mike. If you ever needed to know what's going on in your store, now is the time. We have a program with a chain right now, and what we're checking on is to see if their dining rooms are open or not.
Wow. And I might even add, there's this, so I guess most of the focus before the pandemic was like, the customer, the brand. There might be a door here now for the employer, right? I mean, how much were you focusing? How happy is the employer? Are the employees actually getting what they want out of their experience? Because I think a lot of that is really starting to affect what's going on here. And I think a lot of the employers are they feel a little more empowered these days. I know, again, I have my cousin, he owns some restaurants in Michigan, and he's basically going to sell it because he can't deal with it anymore. He doesn't understand how to deal with the employees and their personalities and all age groups. It's not just young. Everyone talks Gen Z, older people too. And he doesn't know how to deal with it. And I think that's a pretty interesting thing to tackle. I don't know if that's what you're tackling at all. If you ever tackled that, or are you going in that direction at all? How do you retain employees, and how do you make them happy, right? So that the customer experience is eventually better.
We attack that in a couple of ways. We're not in the employee satisfaction business as much as we're in the customer satisfaction business, but they're tied, right? Like I said earlier, if your employees aren't happy, your customers aren't happy. That's just a fact. And so, we do have, of course, we have the Intouch survey. So people are using it at times for employee satisfaction surveys to actually anonymously check on their employees, which works to the extent your employees will tell you. But the data we collect around the operations when we go in, we see what's going on. If a well-run organization then uses that to coach their employees and to train their employees and to work with them, again, to make sure that wrong decision isn't being made. They use that data to find out, is this a chain-wide problem that we need to address as a chain? Or is this an individual store, individual point in time, individual employee problem? They use the data that we collect to better manage their operation, which ultimately gets you a better employee in terms of satisfaction and their satisfaction. But we do have the ability, and we do have some customers that do use it for employee surveys. But again, you're obviously tied at that point to what people will tell you and tell you honestly, just like any survey. So that's a little trickier. But yeah, but our data 100% can help a good company manage their employees.
Great. I'm gonna have to bring in the geo investing because I don't think my employees are telling me the truth all the time when they say they're always happy. I think there's
yeah. Definitely lying. You want to dig into that.
Yeah. So So interesting now. So before this, I want to dig into a couple of things here. Before you had the software solution, you would still be collecting data, but that customer would have to either use their own software, right, which maybe wasn't the most optimal software, or they had to find other third-party software. Now that you have your software, you can bring all that revenue that you weren't getting from those sources in, which is pretty cool. And I'm assuming there's some going on in your company too. So have you seen that work? Have you seen? I mean, that's what you wanted to happen. A lot of customers that had third-party solutions or their own solutions come to you and say, "Hey, we'll just use yours now because you're already clicking on our data." And I guess there'll be more real time in that way too, I'm assuming.
Yeah, you're asking if it's starting to work. So the answer was yes. We were starting to get some traction again in 2019 and 2020, and then we just put everything on hold. We shut down all extraordinary costs. We shut down all investments. And that's how we came through 2 years of pandemic after hitting a brick wall with EBITDA positive and putting cash in the bank. It's because we put everything on hold. However, in the middle of the pandemic, we actually did an RFP with an existing client where they were looking for a survey product. They were a services client for us. They wanted to put their voice of the customer program out. They put it out to tender. They put actually everything out to tender. We won, of course, the services fairly easily. And then the voice of the customer program, we actually wound up winning that as well. And we won that against Qualtrics, Medallia, like big players, the billion-dollar companies in the space. We won that. And do I think we would have won it if we didn't have the services? Hard to say, honestly. But the fact that the customer can have everything in one analytics suite, in one dashboard, one set of insights, one set of everything around their customer experience, and the fact that our software was just as good in terms of what their needs were, it met all their needs, we became a kind of a no-brainer to move when we won that RFP. I say no-brainer, I think they had to think about it pretty hard actually, but from my side it was a no-brainer. And but we won the RFP, and I know that today that we implemented that last August. They're very happy today with the solution. And so is it working? Yes. Do we have some customers who are bringing in addition to our data, bringing in third-party data? For example, we have a large customer who brings in their call center data into us, and we charge them a fee to bring in call center data so they can see the complaints and things through the call center in the same place they see their voice of the customer, they see their Mr. Shops and their audits and everything. So it was starting to work. We see it working very, very well. Have we at this point tapped into that fully and gone to expand that market inside? Like, if you look at our existing book of business being a market to go sell to, have we done a good job of tapping into that? Not yet. I think there's a lot of space there yet for us to go play with.
Now, by the way, what I liked about our conversations with past cameras, you always told me, like, you say, this is where we made mistakes, or maybe we'll not have the best software, but we have our competitive advantages over here and the data that we don't have to have the best software, because it's the whole suite of products, and you've always been candid with that. Doesn't mean you're going to try not improve your software product. I'm sure you are. But I liked how you kind of put that into place a little bit. So the customer's going to think this is, well, wait a second. Well, if they got software, at least, but they're doing this really good, this data part really good better than anybody else, right? The analysis of it and the collecting of it, that probably gives you an edge to some degree.
Yeah, I mean, we targeted a lot of our features against those location-based industries that are our bread and butter, right? We're not trying to get a massive call center, out of Dubai. Like we target locations. So if you've got a whole bunch of places all over North America and you need to know about those places, we've targeted a lot of our features functionality against that. And so 100% that's what we do. Now, do we have to be competitive with our software? Does it have to have everything they need? Yes. But we target all those things. But is my software developing at the same pace as Qualtrics, or have every feature Qualtrics has? No. They're a $1 billion company with like their marketing budget is I don't know how many annual revenue,
But they don't want to do what you do. Nobody, I mean, everybody wants software. Everybody wants to get a software company, but they don't want to do the boots on the ground, grunt, labor intensive stuff that you do. Yeah, I think that's one of your big competitive advantages here, right?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that we have services and software makes us somewhat unique because it's not even one hand people that can do that. And the services companies don't have the resources to get into software. And because it took us years of bootstrapping, and we're one of the bigger ones to do that to start with. And to your point, the software companies, they don't want to start managing tens of thousands of people out there in the field. They want to collect, and monthly revenue. They don't want to get into the service. So we do get to play in a very unique space in terms of doing both.
One thing I want to point out too, an advantage of having the software, I think, is that it actually helps you in your acquisition goals, which you've been doing a lot of recently, because you can go to a company that's inefficient, maybe doesn't even have a software solution, and you can say, hey, we're going to take those customers and we're going to get some wallet share from that, right? Because you can now offer them a software solution. Is that a big part of your pitch when you're doing these, looking for these acquisitions? I mean, I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, I mean, it depends who you're. First of all, we only acquire companies where it's accretive to us. We're pretty picky with who we acquire because there's companies out there that frankly they sell on price. Because when you're sold, they're all sole proprietors, right? And some of these people are out there, they'll sell on price. If they sell $1 million program, if it delivers $50,000 and pays some employees, they're happy. We're not going to take on that program. So companies that are out there and just selling on price and undercutting the market and just, being kind of goofy, and we have no interest in dealing with those people. But there's some really good companies out there with really good owners who try to do the right things, who try to make some money, who try to look after their customers and have really good reputation. And it's those owners who care about what we have to offer. And that's when they typically will want to try to sell to us, because they know we're going to actually give their customer a better experience. We're going to give them additional technology. We're going to give them additional things they didn't have before. They're not going to sell their company to somebody and watch them screw it up or watch them degrade the quality level, or watch their employees suffer. So, the good owners and operators who care about their employees and care about their customers, they tend to look at us as a very attractive acquirer. So it all does come together.
Very great. And we got about 10, 15 minutes left here. I know Bobby's out there with us somewhere behind us with a stopwatch somewhere. He's going to come in and clock in us sometime, but I want to do a few more things here. The one back to you were always honest with me about where you guys went wrong, went right. During your when you came on board, and some of the first things you did was you kind of were looking at the organization, kind of what department should be here, what should be consolidated. You talked about some of the mistakes you made in the sales, your marketing and selling approach. Can you talk about that and what the mistakes you made and what you did to solve that? I think marketing is, most important part of things in any business, right? You got a great product, but you don't market it, right? That's an issue. So why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, really that's the software side more than anywhere, and that is we came out with a strategy that was basically a Forrester and Gartner kind of conferences and involvement, and we were going head to head out of the gate, brand new product, and went head to head out of the gate with your Qualtrics and your Medallions. Right, that's like a tick running up the elephant's leg a little bit. It's not really. It's probably not the best approach in hindsight. I had a person in charge over here at the time who built up a whole team around that, around executing that type of strategy, and it was premature. We were premature with that approach, and so we have learned in looking at Google and Google Analytics and the cost per lead and cost per acquisition and all those things, because we want to be responsible. We want to bootstrap. We don't want to dilute our shareholders, right? We want to grow, but we want to grow responsibly. We want to grow profitably. And we have learned now what we're doing is, we're actually adding services revenue much faster than we were for a while there. You'll continue to see, I think, services revenue being added faster because, we now know we can layer onto that a software sales approach to that ever-growing customer base on the services. And it takes a while because they've got, there's timelines and vendors and contracts you come up against. But we know we can be very successful there. And if we can just keep getting more and more logos on our services, we can then turn our approach to get more and more logos on our software. Now, don't get me wrong, we still sell standalone SaaS. We still sell it every day. We market it out there on Google. It's available. You can buy and pay online with a credit card. You don't even have to be enterprise. We have all that available. But we've learned that putting a lot of big dollars against that fight is a fool's errand a little bit. We're putting our efforts now on the sales and marketing side against where we know we're going to win.
Now, with your acquisition strategy, so when I first talked to you in the end of 19, you just started getting that. I think you just made your first acquisition, maybe, or you, I believe, and you had another one on tap. You didn't close it because you put it on a hold because COVID came along. So the 2022 here is going to be really the first. Now you made a couple acquisitions, or did you make one or two in 2020, Cameron?
Well, we've been making acquisitions going back to 2005. Almost every few years we make one. 2011 we made one. 2013 we made one. But 2015 we made a decent sized one. But in recent history, we did the one in the beginning of 2020. We closed it right before the pandemic.
Right.
Then another one we were supposed to do in May, but we put a hold because of the pandemic. And that's the one we revisited and closed on October of 2021. That's the last fall.
Okay, so 2022 is going to get the benefit of both those acquisitions, the full year of those acquisitions.
Yeah, the first one was pretty small. So yes, but the first one was pretty small that we did in the beginning of 2020. So we are, that's up and running. It wasn't a large acquisition. We literally just paid cash for that one. And then but we are now going to get a full year of the one that we had for Q4 for sure. Yeah. Now, they were in the automotive industry. It was one of the big industries. So it's going to take a little while before we see the full impact, to be honest with you, because they haven't come back like we'd hoped. And I talked about why earlier. But yeah, we still have yet to see the full impact of that acquisition.
So the growth we're seeing right now is really more over your legacy organic growth of your business, right? Not even the acquisition growth.
It's everything. It's programs and customers having come back versus last year with the pandemic. It is acquisition revenue from the one that we closed last fall, and it is also new logos. It's all three in terms of what's going on there.
Great. And have you seen, in terms of the acquisition environment, I'm assuming some of the companies that you compete with, smaller firms, had a hard time competing in 2020 and 21. Have you seen that as opportunity? Has a lot of that gone away? Is that improving your ability to get market share because some companies are going away?
Yeah, I think it will help us. I think that we've started to see our pipeline is pretty healthy right now. I would say that there's more companies are willing to look at a new vendor right now. More companies willing to do RFPs right now. More companies willing to make those changes right now. Thankfully, not ours so far. But not everybody weathered the pandemic the same way. Not everybody had the ability to deliver during the pandemic the same way. And so I do think there's opportunity out there for customer grabs. And I think there's opportunity out there potentially for more acquisitions in the future as well, as owner-operators just decide that they don't want to build it again.
Great. And to be clear, you don't have to raise much capital to execute your growth strategy, right? You're well capitalized, no debt.
Yeah, we have a little bit of debt on the books right now at the end of Q1, and it's almost offset by the cash. We're close to kind of break even on the cash debt situation, and that's only because when we did the acquisition, which is a pretty good sized acquisition on October 1st, we didn't do a raise either. We used all of our cash on hand for that, and then some contingent payments and whatnot. So because of that, we ran ourselves a little tight, so we'll have to rebuild the coffers a little bit, but we have no need to raise capital to fund our growth. We're going to stay even positive. People always ask me, would you do a raise? And my answer is for the right thing. It has to be accretive to my shareholders. There has to be a good reason for it. Like maybe there was an acquisition that was such a really good idea, right? And instead of taking on bank debt, it's less risky and maybe makes sense to do if the price of the stock is like current pricing. No, I'm not doing a raise. But the current market's a bit of a disaster, I think, in general. Certainly, we have not, escaped it. I mean, we're trading it. I'm trading, this morning, I think I was trading at, I don't know, like 0.6 of my forecasted revenue or something. Like, people talk about the revenue. I talk about fractions.
It's crazy, yeah. Now I think there. Look, I think, obviously you trade on the OTC, which maybe that's some exposure issue there. I'm not sure. Maybe there's some. What are you, a software company? Maybe people don't understand necessarily that your non-software business, your services business is really. They don't understand it. They think they don't want to put a high multiple on it. Maybe they don't understand it's a recurring revenue. You said something about repeatable revenue. I mean, it might not be recurring, but it's repeatable. These customers keep coming back.
Yeah, well, our services are recurring revenue. I mean, it's just month all the time, right? And we also have repeatable revenue with non-recurring, which is still repeat. Non-recurring is repeatable in my mind in the future potentially, but we have almost all of our revenue is recurring. That's how we see it.
That's great. So I think that's as that messaging gets out there more. Now, more importantly, though, I think I want to get into your financials. We'll end up on your financials. I don't want to talk about your white paper you did or that you did. So the stock market's gone through this major correction here. Inflation's a problem. We got labor issues. The market now is much more hypersensitive about profitability. And seeing a lot of companies that were selling at really high price to sales multiples, the stocks are crashing, even though they had some good revenue growth. Ring Central, Twilio, I'm talking in the big cap space. Across the board, we can go. So there might be this kind of need to let people know, hey, we can be profitable. We want, or we're going to be profitable soon. So that might be something to really talk about. So can you give us a path to where you want that what you want that to look like? Where does that play in your game plan? There's always this thing: growth, revenue, profitability. Where is it? I mean, I think if we're close to break even, right, to slightly profitable, we can start valuing a company on its revenue because you're right there.
Yeah, I'll have to apologize for talking in platitudes because we haven't provided guidance to that exactly out there. So I can't tell you. However, if you look at our P&Ls over the years, like, it's almost like profits are sitting like just above and below the line. It's kind of there, especially operating profits. I mean, obviously the things we do with acquisitions and like we threw $127,000 this quarter against our non-operating profits at a loss because of a good thing, because the value of our contingent payments went up, in terms of the company we bought. So, which means they're doing better than we thought coming out of the pandemic. So there's good things that can cause bad things below the operating profit. But if you look at the operating profit of the company, they're pretty consistent. And one of the challenges I've had over the years is people say to me, well, your revenue is up like the 5 years before the pandemic, we were up 130%. People are like, but you've got all that revenue growth and your profits are flat. So therefore you're inefficient, right? Your model doesn't scale. It's an inefficient model. And I was kind of smiling, or hear me out here, we've been investing in building a software company without raising capital, right? And we're very well financially managed. It allowed us to do that. And you saw during the pandemic how we just shut everything off. And even though we lost 70% of our revenue a quarter, we didn't lose all that money because we just shut off all the investment, we shut off all the costs. So we have the ability to change our investment levels and pull levers. If we want to be profitable, if we wanted to be profitable tomorrow, we could be. Do I think it's the right thing? I don't know that we're there yet. I think I want more software traction. I think I want more growth. We want to be a 30, 40, $50 million company and growing from there. And are we close to where we should be starting to throw some profits off while we grow? Yeah, I mean, intellectually, you'd say we must be, right? But that is becoming a profitable part of the plan, of course, right? And we've always watched very carefully to make sure that we're not losing a bunch of money.
And to be clear, you're right around that level. You're not like hemorrhaging. So, which I think really, when I invest in past software companies, and even the one that's been now, you want to be around that level because I'm okay with paying a high multiple on revenue if the company can stay at grow revenues quickly in a recurring revenue business, right? We are right around break even, investing in your company without having to raise money. So that deserves, in my opinion, a very high multiple. And the second you want to turn profits on, you can do that. that's a great situation to be in. I mean, a lot of companies can't be in that situation, especially, and what lets you do that is because of your recurring revenue nature of your company. It allows you to have that kind of, I think, manageability of that. So why don't you talk about the growth, where you the last few years and where you're at, the amount of revenues and your guidance.
Yeah, so we are, we're, like I say, like, I mean, I always love it when I hear things like, I don't mind paying a high multiple. I actually take a multiple. We trade currently at a fraction to revenue, 0.6 roughly right now, which again, I know the market's what it is and I get it. And our philosophy has always been, if we build the business to have underlying core value, if the value is real, if the business is real, if the ability to run those profits is real, we will get the value. We may have to spend some time communicating. We may have to do some actual IR work instead of just get out a lovely interview that I enjoy. We might have to spend some money and do some things. But we don't have to do that until we get that business to where we want it to be, right? Which when that's going to be, we'll see. It's not distant future, right? It's not distant future. And so we have the guidance out to the market right now where we will be $24 million. We report in Canadian dollars. We'll be $24 million this year. We were $16 million in 2021. We threw up $1.7 million in EBITDA in 2021. I don't focus on the EBITDA as much or the profit as much as I do on the revenue, and I'm making sure I'm cash flow positive and that I can pay for all of my toys that I bought, like new companies, right? Where I need to put a little hardware and things like that. So, we're looking for like a 50% growth this year. We've forecasted 24 million. We'll see whether we change that forecast again in August. Taking it up every time we've done an announcement, taking it up so far. But we're feeling good about the recovery. We're feeling good about where we're going. I certainly want to be much higher than that in 2023. And we're going to continue to be responsible with the cash. And at what point we decide to turn the corner and say, okay, let's shut some of this down on this side and let's start throwing some money in the bank over here. Those are toggles. The great situation for us is those are toggles we have available. Like we don't have to change our business model to go make money tomorrow. We just have to decide where we want to invest or whether we want to invest, right? We're making investment decisions from a really healthy company as opposed to massive restructure, strategic or changes. So we're in pretty good shape to get stuff figured out as we get toward where we're going.
Great to hear. Great to hear. So, I guess I should, before we get to the white paper real quick, I should say, I mean, are you worried about the economy? I mean, if you see a slowdown in the economy, how have you fared in those kind of environments in the past? And what's your opinion on that? Because a lot of your customers are in some of these service industries, right? Like retail, restaurants.
I mean, look, I'd be an idiot to say I wasn't worried about the economy. I live in the planet. But do I, considering that our customers closed their doors during the pandemic physically, and we came through it okay, I'm having a hard time believing that whatever is going to go on with the economy right now is going to do worse things to us than the last couple of years did. So, right. Does it concern me? Sure. Does it keep me up at night? No.
Okay, great. And in terms of your white paper, you sent me that. Do you want to give the overall viewpoint to that?
All it was just it's really about vendors in the industry was what it was. And we just talked about there's a lot of differences. A lot of vendors use third parties to do their software. Like all of our software that we provide is built in-house. The development team in North America, it's not offshore even. It's our own development team with full-time employees building our software, building our hosting solution. Whereas most vendors in the services side of things use a third-party software platform. So, 3 of them can go bid on a project and they all show the exact same demo because they're using the same software. They all use the same. They all use the same outsourced people for things. So, you have to be careful how you do those things. And, whereas we control almost all of our operations in-house with full-time employees. So we're able to do things how people can.
I think you talked about, and we can make this report available, I guess, if people want to read it, right? Cameron, no problem. Yeah.
It's just a white paper about the industry. It's not specific to necessarily. It talks a little bit about us.
You talked about independent contractor database, scheduling, quality assurance, reporting and analytics, and customer service, and how that relates to the industry. I think you talked about some competitive landscape there, what's important, what isn't important. So if you're gonna invest in this company or this industry, I would recommend that you read this white paper. We'll make it available.
If you want to share that to your followers, you certainly can go right ahead.
Great. Oh, okay. Well, thanks a lot, Cameron. Again, we've been here with Cameron Watt, CEO of Intouch Insight, INXSF, and IN.
Yeah, we're INX on the TSX-V.
Yeah, INX, yep. And so really enjoyed this. Hope to do this again, Cameron. Have an update. Maybe we'll have an update call. There's a few things I still want to touch on. Maybe we can do a call on geo-investing when you have some time. Maybe a 15-minute conversation and a few things I wanted to get into a little bit. I want to talk more about your new contract you just signed up and what that means. And I also want to talk about some of your labor needs and these kind of things in the current environment. So
we'll definitely follow up in the future. I look forward to hearing from you. And thanks for taking the time today, Maj.
All right, man. Thanks, Cameron.